Have you ever felt like you're living for other people, even though you want to pursue your dreams and goals? A feeling like chains are holding you back, preventing you from living for yourself, but for the people around you? If so, you're not alone. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists in history, spent decades studying a phenomenon he considered a silent epidemic: people who live their entire lives without ever knowing themselves. Jung wasn't talking about self-knowledge in the sense you know it. No, he was talking about something much deeper and more disturbing. He discovered that most people don't live, they perform, and worst of all, they don't even realize it. In his research with thousands of patients, Jung identified a startlingly common pattern. People would come to his office in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, reporting a strange sense of emptiness. "Doctor, I have everything I ever wanted, but I feel as if I'm living someone else's life." But Jung went further. He didn't just identify the problem, he discovered exactly how this trap forms and how you can escape it. If you feel like you're playing a role in your own life, that's no coincidence. But before we continue, if this video is making you rethink anything, I ask that you subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on the notification bell. This helps me continue bringing you valuable content. It only takes a second. Now, back to the video. Chapter 1. The mask you don't know you're wearing. Jung had a concept that will change the way you see your own existence, the persona. But it's not about theater or pretense. It's much more serious than that. The persona is this psychological mask you've developed to survive in the world. And here's the truly disturbing thing. You started wearing this mask so early in life that you've forgotten it exists. Think about it. How many times today did you say okay when you weren't okay? How many times did you smile when you wanted to cry? How many times did you say yes when every fiber of your being screamed no? Jung discovered something shocking in his analyses. Most people identify so much with their persona that they completely lose touch with who they really are underneath. It's as if you've forgotten you're wearing a mask, and now think the mask is your real face. But here's the part that will give you chills. Jung realized that this identification with the persona isn't just a psychological problem, it's a betrayal of your own soul. Because while you're busy being who others expect you to be, your true essence is dying for expression. A contemporary philosopher described it this way: it's as if you were an actor who has forgotten he's on stage. You're no longer playing the character, you've become the character. And the worst part? You don't even remember who you were before the role began. And what comes next will show you exactly how this happened to you. Chapter 2. How you learn to betray yourself. Jung made a devastating observation. No one is born a fake. You didn't come into this world wanting to please everyone. So what happened? The answer lies in how we learn to survive emotionally as children. Jung called this functional adaptation, but it's actually the moment we begin to trade our authenticity for approval. Imagine a child who expresses anger and is punished, who cries and is ignored, who says no and is rejected. This child quickly learns a terrible lesson. To be loved, I must hide who I am. And so the persona is born, not as a conscious choice, but as a survival strategy. You learn to be the good boy, the obedient girl, the trouble-free teenager, the cooperative adult. Jung observed that this adaptation is necessary to a certain extent. We live in society, we need some rules. But the problem arises when the mask becomes permanent, when you stop choosing when to wear it, and it simply sticks to your face. A researcher at the University of Zurich, following Jung's work, discovered something frightening. People who live predominantly through their persona develop what he called empty self syndrome. They function perfectly in society, but feel as if they are watching their own lives from the outside. And here's the most disturbing part. The better you get at using your persona, the further you move away from who you truly are. It's a vicious cycle where social success means personal failure. But Jung discovered something even more shocking about this process. Chapter 3. The secret price of your performance. Jung made a discovery that completely changed modern psychology. He realized that when you abandon parts of yourself to fit in, those parts don't simply disappear. They go to a place he called the shadow. The shadow is everything you've rejected about yourself in order to be accepted. Your anger, your unacceptable desires, your rebellion, your need to say no. And here's the truly astonishing thing. The more you deny your shadow, the more power it gains over you. Jung observed patients who were excessively nice during the day and had violent nightmares at night. People who never displayed anger but developed psychosomatic illnesses. Individuals who always said yes but lived in a constant state of internal resentment. It's like your psyche is a hydraulic system. When you block the pressure in one place, it has to come out in another. And it usually comes out in much more destructive ways than if you were simply honest from the start. But Jung went further. He discovered that this repression doesn't just affect you, it contaminates all your relationships. Because people aren't relating to you, they're relating to your persona. And on some unconscious level, everyone senses something false there. A neurologist with 25 years of experience explained it this way. It's like an actor trying to maintain a character 24 hours a day. The brain isn't designed for that. The neurological strain of maintaining a false identity is immense. And then Jung asked the question that changes everything. What if what you call maturity is actually the slow death of your soul? And now we come to the darkest part of Jung's discovery. Chapter 4. The invisible prison. Jung realized something terrifying. Most people don't just wear a mask, they become willing prisoners of their own personas. And worse, they call this prison responsibility or maturity. He noticed a recurring pattern in his patients, people who reached their 40s and 50s, feeling like their lives weren't their own. They'd followed all the rules, met all the expectations, but felt like they were living on autopilot. Jung called this death in life. When you're biologically alive but psychologically dead, you function, produce, and interact, but there's a ghostly quality to it all, as if you were a highly programmed robot. And here's what's most disturbing. This condition is so normalized in our society that we treat it as a sign of mental health. Oh, so-and-so is so balanced, never causes problems, always helps. Jung would say, maybe he's dying inside. A German psychiatrist studying Jung's archives made a shocking discovery. Patients who lived predominantly through the persona developed what he called existential anesthesia. They functioned perfectly, but no longer felt anything intensely, neither joy, nor sadness, nor anger. Jung wrote in his personal diaries, "I have seen people who have built perfect lives on foundations of lies so deep that they themselves believed them, and when the truth tried to emerge, they medicated it, ignored it, or called it a disease." But Jung didn't stop there. He discovered exactly how this prison holds together. Chapter 5. The Diabolic Mechanism. Jung made an observation that will make you rethink all your relationships. The people around you have an interest in keeping you fake, not out of malice, but because your authenticity would make them uncomfortable. When you always say yes, others get used to your complacency. When you never express your needs, they get used to your independence. When you always take care of others, they get used to being taken care of. And then Jung identified the diabolical mechanism. The moment you try to be more honest with yourself, the people around you start pressuring you to return to your old role. You've changed. You're being selfish. You're not the same anymore. But Jung realized that these reactions reveal a disturbing truth. Many people don't love you. They love what you do for them. They don't want the real you. They want your functional persona. An anthropologist who studied isolated tribes found a fascinating parallel. In primitive societies, when someone tried to break tribal norms, the entire tribe would mobilize to force conformity. Jung realized that our civilized society does exactly the same thing, only more subtly. And here's the most sinister part. You become the guardian of your own prison, because breaking the persona means facing not only external disapproval, but the internal terror of not knowing who you are without it. Jung wrote, "The greatest fear of a human being is not death. It is to discover that he has lived a life that was not his." And now we come to the point where Jung reveals how to escape this prison. Chapter 6. The Dangerous Path to Freedom. Jung didn't offer comforting advice or easy formulas. He offered something far more radical and frightening, a royal path to freedom. But this path comes at a price most people are unwilling to pay. Jung called this process individuation. And it's not self-help, it's psychic archaeology. It's digging through layers and layers of conditioning until you find what's left of your original self. And what you find down there may be quite different from what you imagine. The first step, according to Jung, is the most terrifying. You need to stop trying to be a good person. Not because he wanted you to become cruel, but because goodness is often just fear in disguise. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of having to deal with the consequences of being real. Jung observed something fascinating. When his patients stopped trying to please everyone, they initially felt guilty and selfish, but he realized that this guilt wasn't evidence that they were doing something wrong. It was evidence that they were doing something right for the first time. A contemporary existentialist philosopher described it this way: the guilt you feel when you stop betraying yourself is the same guilt a slave would feel when breaking his chains. You have been conditioned to believe that your freedom is a betrayal. And what Jung discovered about what happens when you finally choose to be real will shock you. Chapter 7. The Dark Transformation. Jung made a final discovery that changed his view of human nature. When you stop living for others, you don't become a worse person. You become a real person. And real people are infinitely more valuable than good people. He observed that patients undergoing the individuation process initially lost relationships. People withdrew, became uncomfortable, even hostile. But Jung noticed something extraordinary. In place of these false connections, relationships of a depth they had never experienced began to emerge. Because when you stop wearing a mask, you attract people who don't need masks. When you stop pretending to be perfect, you find people who embrace imperfections. When you stop being convenient, you find people who value authenticity over convenience. Jung wrote in his last notes, "The greatest gift you can give the world is not your perfection, it is your honesty. It is not your conformity, it is your courage to be different. It is not your ease, it is your real complexity." And perhaps Jung's most liberating discovery: you don't need everyone's approval to have a meaningful life. In fact, seeking universal approval is the surest way to have a meaningless life. So here is the question Jung left for each of us. Will you continue living the life others have written for you, or will you finally have the courage to write your own story? The choice has always been yours. The question is, are you ready to make it? If this video resonated with you, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. There's much more content coming. And if you want to continue this journey of true self-discovery, I invite you to watch this video that's appearing on your screen right now, where we explore another revolutionary concept that can completely change your perspective on who you really are. If you've watched this far, thank you very much for your attention. See you in the next video.